Hello. Today we're going to figure out how to put a cover on a pre-made book block. This is a pre-made, or I made it, book cloth. It's just traditional fabric which you can convert to book cloth by placing double stick iron-on adhesive and a piece of tissue paper to it. I'll show that in another tutorial. And then the book block, also hand sewn, made myself, and I will show you how to do that in another tutorial. What you're going to need to do is to put the cover on. You're going to need 2 pieces of chipboard. I bought these pre-sized on Amazon quite inexpensively, but if you notice, they don't quite fit the book block. It's a little big. So what we're going to have to do is measure it down so it fits properly on the book block. Now when we put it on the book block, we'll have the side that has the stitching all even, and then we're going to want 1/4 of an inch or less on each of the other 3 sides. The reason for that is that we place books on shelves, and in order to protect the paper, we want it off the edge of the cover a little bit and also away from the edge over here. So what we're going to do is you would measure your book block. Luckily here our cutter has pre-measured grid. I actually already know what the size of the book block is. It's actually a traditional 1/4 page, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But you can use the squares here to measure if you need to. So here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/2 by 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. So now that we know the size that we need, what we're going to do is measure out 1/4 inch around, or an extra 1/2 inch top to bottom for these sides. So top to bottom, that was 5 1/2, so we're going to measure 6 inches. Now for this kind of cutter, it can take, I believe, up to 12 sheets. You're only going to want to do 1 piece of chipboard at a time. This is considered heavyweight chipboard. I prefer to use that because that way it's not as flimsy once you apply the glue and make the book out of it. Now we're going to do the 4 1/4 side, which is actually only going to be 4 1/2 because we only need an extra 1/4 on the outer edge. So we're going to do 4 1/2. And I'm using the grids and a ruler up here on the cutter to measure. Now, we need these pieces. These 2 larger pieces off the ends can get thrown away. These shorter pieces, we're going to throw 1 away, keep 1 to use as a spine piece. So we're going to hold that for now and get our cutter out of the way. Now, to create the cover for the book block, we have our pre-made paper, and we're going to kind of figure out where on the page we want to put it, because we need the fold-in pages to fit around the chipboard. And then we're also going to put the centerpiece on here for the spine, and leave a little bit of extra space. Basically, your spine width depends on how big your book block is. It's smaller than the actual book block is here, but I want the fabric to be able to wrap around. I don't need it extending beyond the edges of the book block. I need it a little bit smaller so it looks nice when it's actually completed. Now, we kind of know how we're doing this on the paper. This extra fabric, I'm moving it over a little bit because this doesn't have the sticky tissue paper on the side, so I'm going to cut that off later before folding it over. So what we're going to do is you're going to use PVA glue. This is line code neutral pH adhesive because I had some left, but you don't have to use something this fancy because this is more expensive than regular PVA glue. Just use regular PVA. I had a smaller bottle that's easier to handle with this stuff in it. Alright, what you're going to do is you're going to draw lines along the outer edge and then fill it in a little bit with a PVA glue. Don't go too crazy. And then what you're going to do is, actually we don't want it on the thing yet, is you're going to make sure you brush to the outer edge and even it out, because if you don't, you're going to get these glue lines in your fabric. Even though you have the tissue paper on there, they're going to show through, and they're going to make your book look not so pretty. So definitely get it along the edge. Keep your glue spread out all over the place. Don't let it glob too crazy. Just to be aware of where your glue's hitting on the table, so that way you don't end up getting it all over your book, back into your book paper. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be necessarily museum quality. So just put it on there and stick it to your book paper. Gonna do the same thing with the spine. Just so you know, I suggest using the smaller bottle because it does make it easier to use the glue. So, and actually I have extra glue, so I'm going to transfer it over. Don't waste it. Because it is more expensive than standard glue. But it bends a little bit when it dries. It's called flexi glue kind of thing. And that's what you want. So, now that we got that going, and we're going to do this one. It doesn't take long for this to dry once it dries, but when I get done painting this on, I'm going to pause the camera there and let it dry, and then I'll show you the next part of sticking the cover on the book. And don't worry if the glue gets on the back end of this cardstock or chipboard, because you're going to glue stuff to the other side eventually anyway. It's not a big deal. And we're going to bring it all the way to the edge. Try to get it work as quickly as possible before it dries, so that way the fabric goes all the way to the edge on this. And there we go. That should, you're going to get a little bit of curve maybe, not a big deal, just press it down, let it dry. We'll come back, we'll cut the edges and roll it over to roll the fabric edge in, and then we'll put in end pages and put the book block in.